Hi, Lisa. Welcome. One aspect of improving operational efficiency and reducing greenhouse gas emissions is by managing biofueling. Can you tell us about that?
Of course, and thanks so much for having me. So first, a quick reminder that biofouling occurs whenever a surface, such as a ship's hull, is submerged in water, and almost immediately that surface is colonized by bacteria. Eventually, organisms that are familiar to us and visible by eye, like barnacles and mussels, can be incorporated. Now, as you can imagine, this three-dimensional layer of organic matter adds extra friction and extra drag as the ship slides through the water, and it increases the amount of fuel needed to push the ship along. Estimates of this fuel penalty from biofouling vary by ship and by condition, of course, but even a heavy slime layer of just bacteria and microalgae can increase fuel usage by 10%. We've known this forever, right? So there's always been a good economic incentive to reduce biofouling. Less biofouling, less fuel, lower fuel bill. We can ask ourselves, though, what does this have to do with decarbonization? As the industry is sorting out the complicated issue of alternative fuels and the necessary infrastructure needed to manufacture, transport, and store these fuels, reducing biofouling right now is one thing ship owners and operators can do to reduce emissions immediately. Less biofouling, less fuel, less greenhouse gas emissions. We can also think about biofouling in terms of invasive species and their effect on ocean health. Living organisms can be hitchhikers, right? Catching a ride from place to place on a ship's hull or in the so-called niche areas. The niche areas are basically more curvy, irregular surfaces like propellers and sea chests, and they can harbor really high concentrations of organisms. Either way, when these organisms arrive to a new location, they can basically reproduce and be invasive, growing like weeds and creating great ecological, economic, or human health harm. Finally, since shipping is a global industry, we should mention policy here. On a national level, some countries like New Zealand, Australia, Brazil, and others have put in place biofouling policies, for example, regulating the in-water cleaning of biofouling. On a global level, in 2011, the International Maritime Organization put in place a set of voluntary guidelines, which were updated in 2023, and they help ship owners and operators manage biofouling to reduce the potential transfer of invasive species. And of course, this has the co-benefit of reducing greenhouse gas emissions as well. To further strengthen these efforts and make them globally consistent, which is really important in the shipping industry, as we all know, the IMO agreed to put in place what is called a mandatory instrument, such as a convention. And when that is implemented, it will require ships to manage biofouling. In 4 years' time, that is 2029, a draft version of the mandatory instrument will be submitted to IMO. In the meantime, there are a lot of details to be worked out, so stay tuned.